Starting stream again. And we should be at the right video settings. And we do have low latency on. All right, so let's see if that works better. Claudiu Todea, hello. Oh, that does seem much faster. I'll tell you what. I'm going to work on the head a bit here, so I'm just going to zoom significantly on this. Hi everyone, is it working now? I think so. I didn't know that I've been streaming in 4K when I stream here. And I didn't know that if you wanted to do low latency chat, it actually won't do 4K. It does 1440p max, so I had to lower the resolution. Hi, everyone. Hi from Romania, thank you. Tips for figure drawing? Do a ton of it. I've done hundreds of hours of it personally. Volume, I would say, is the most important thing for figure drawing. The body is so complicated and drawing the figure is so complicated that there's no tips or secrets or anything like that will actually do much to make you great at drawing the figure. You just need super high volume.
This prop is taking up too much space on my seat. Okay.
She's going to be very upset if you put her down.
Please stay there.
Oh, thank you for the kind words. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Man, chat's coming in fast. Jeez, that low latency does make a difference. Oh, goodness.
What?
Okay, so, oh, I forgot that. Yeah, I changed the resolution, but I forgot to drop the bit rate. Oh well, we'll see. If anything seems horrible, everyone just let me know, and I'll adjust the bit rate as well for the stream. I forgot to change it from the 4K bit rate, because I'm not a tech guy, so... Let's see. Ooh, that's a lot of stuff. Everyone coming in. Glad you like the anatomy. Thank you for the kind words. Have you found that skillful thoughts within drawing have affected other parts of your life? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's a feedback loop, you know? I think that sort of the things that you learn about life and how you manage the way that you go through life obviously feed back into drawing, and drawing gives you the exact same thing back for the rest of your life as well. How do you overcome burnout? I'm not sure. I think burnout is a really strong word, and we don't actually know what that is. She's licking my microphone now. Sorry if you all hear dogs sniffling. Burnout is a really strong word, and I'm not sure that we actually understand what that is, right? If we remove the baggage that's associated with being creatively burnt out, is there anything like really strong or important about the idea that you're just physically exhausted from being creative for hours and from expecting a lot from yourself? I think that that's most of what burnout actually is. You're just tired, you know, and it's not actually some intense thing that's tied up with your art or tied up with your selfhood or anything like that, you know. It can obviously feel that way when you feel so tired, so exhausted that you don't draw for weeks or months or something like that, but it's also, it's not a given that you're supposed to be able to do that, you know. it's not written anywhere that artists are supposed to be these prolific monsters that do a finished drawing every 4 days and things like that. That's a cultural affect that we have all sort of donned based on the subtle and loving hypnosis of all of our peers. But there's nothing that says that has to be true, right? So it's not a given that you need to be able to output all of the time.
Mm-hmm.
If you remove yourself from the equation, you're just like talking about being an artist abstractly. Imagine if you weren't an artist, you would think it was kind of crazy that everyone would expect that from themselves, right? You'd be like, yeah, maybe you just can only draw once a month or something like that. See no reason why that wouldn't be the case. You know, if you're being hyper creative, that's a very energetically draining act. Hey James, what's up? How you doing, buddy? James, you and Carly are invited to Deirdre's birthday outdoors Astoria Park picnic event if we wind up doing it. So hit us up.
Yeah.
Hit us up.
Happy birthday to me.
Let's see what else is going on here. Oh, Sam Kelly. Hey dude, I'm a huge admirer of your work. Any advice for a classical painter trying to move into concept art illustration? Well, first off, Sam Kelly, that was totally unnecessary. Thank you for the $5, but we really appreciate it. I just want you to know that you're bigger than you could imagine, right? Like you're huge. You're monumental. You're like a huge giant temple that some poor wayward flung indigenous explorer discovered in the heart of a jungle, and he prostrated himself before it and therein did receive enlightenment. Thank you again for the donation, Sam Kelly. In terms of tips for a classical painter trying to move into concept art illustration, if you feel like you have a grasp on some of those classical chops, like what it takes to render form, what it takes to compose pictures with interesting shapes and colors and to capture lighting effects, I mean, you just want to carry all of that stuff straight through, right, in terms of technical ability. And then when you're using, for example, digital tools, because if you're going into concept art and illustration, probably most likely, at least some part of your process is going to wind up using digital tools. You want to use them in a way that maximizes your use of your classical training, right? So if you're in Photoshop, you can make even the standard hard round brush feel like sketching with a pencil if you set it to like a medium 50% gray and then drop its opacity and its flow down to like 30% or something like that. And then you'll find that it feels a lot like drawing with a pencil. And that's how I use it when I'm drawing in Photoshop. And I would just have sort of a mode of using your tools for all of them, for the color brushes, for texture brushes. Just try to get them as close to what you're used to from your painting experience as possible. And then beyond that, I would think about design. You know, I feel like classical painting education doesn't focus a lot on design, like really like foundational design. So I would do a quick investigation. Well, not quick, it's going to be a lifelong study, but investigate the principles of design, you know, like learn about rhythm, emphasis, variety, economy, repetition, balance, movement and continuity, and unity. Know them like the back of your hand. Know them in terms of how to apply them, know how to use them as diagnostic tools, and then apply all of that knowledge to the technical painting ability that you already have. And it could be a little tough to find good education on that. I'm working on a video about that right now. But, so, you know, watch out for that coming up sometime soon. But if you look up, like, graphic designers especially are pretty strong on that stuff. They have good abstract education on the principles of design, so you could start there. Hi, everyone. Hello. Thank you, everyone, for being here. You're all very kind. Amazing shading work. Thank you, Polo. Is it common for people to use pen names in the art industry? It is. Lots of people use pen names, especially if you have a very common name. I have a pretty common name. Like, there's another Steven Zapata, who works in like games, and I think he does illustrations and stuff like that, but he also does like technical shading, I think, just based on his website, which I go to if I leave the N out of my name. So if you have a pretty common name that other people in the industry might kind of get mixed up with, lots of people in that situation use pen names instead. Oh, I've been drawing a lot today. My hand is shaky. Do you have any advice for figuring out what you actually need to improve to get your art where you want it? The most important thing about that, and it is the number one mistake or drawback for beginners, is that you don't have a solid goal. And that's really hard to overcome. But when you are in a period of your learning where you can say, I want to be a character artist, I want to be an environmental artist, I want to do props, I want to make hard surface vehicles for feature films, those periods of your practice, and all those things can change, right? You don't have to be married to all of those things. But those periods in your practice are the easiest times to figure out what the heck you're actually supposed to be doing. And the rest of the time, where you're very unsure, where you don't know what the path holds for you, it's super hard to know what the heck you're supposed to be doing and why. Because art is too big, art is too big. If you don't have a solid trimmed down goal, there really is no recourse. You have to sort of admit to yourself, like, I'm just trying to be great at drawing and painting, and that is realistically what, a 10 to 15 year journey to gain just random virtuosity. It's a super long journey, and there's no straight path for it. So I would ask yourself what you really want your goal to be. Try to make it as concrete and pared down as possible, and then live within that dream for a while. It can always change, but it gives you a lot of structure for deciding what you actually want to do. Sam Kelly, again with the donation. Thank you so much, Sam Kelly. You are extremely kind. We appreciate your support around here. You're buying us delicious, lovely coffees. We're very happy to have them. You're providing essential succor for us. You're getting greenies for the dogs to keep their
greenie money.
It's that greenie money. It keeps the dog's breath fresh. That's the only way they're gonna get kisses. You guys know that dogs get depressed if you don't kiss them on the lips, right? You have to do that. So it's important to have greenies. It's been a hard adjustment going from optical painting with a model / still life to designing from imagination. Thanks for the advice. Yeah, designing from imagination is super tough. And yeah, the principles of design are really they're the starting point for that. They're not necessarily the answer a lot of the time, but the great thing about them is that they give you a diagnostic tool as you work, and that's super useful. Oh my God, Colin Redwood with the $5 super chat. That's pretty unbelievable. Colin Redwood, thank you so much. If I'm not mistaken, you're the Colin Redwood who makes the ancient and storied redwood trees, giant sequoias hollowed out that float across haunting rivers in far-flung lands. Thank you so much, Colin Redwood. We haven't made it onto one of your ships yet, but I hope we do. I'm going for graphic design certificate. My professors say I should stay for my bachelor's, but I disagree. What are your thoughts? I'm going to be cautious for someone who's in graphic design to say, like, don't get your degree, because I don't have much experience with what people do in the graphic design realm. Like, I feel like a lot of graphic designers get a lot of staff positions, and there might be things for staff positions where, in order to satisfy things for HR, they want you to have a degree, or maybe they would want you to do continuing ed if you didn't, or something like that. I don't know. There's just, all those things are possibilities, and unfortunately, I don't have enough experience in the graphic design realms to speak with confidence about that. But in a general sense, most places, if they don't have weird constraints like that, they only care about the work. They don't want to hire someone who does mediocre work just because they have a degree. They want to hire people who do really, really good work. Eugene Dream with the $1 super chat. Thank you so much, Eugene Dream. That's fantastic. And indeed, your dream is a beautiful dream. It's a dream that we've dreamed many times, all of us collectively. Maybe we've forgotten that Eugene dream. It disappears as soon as we wake up, but we've all dreamt it. Thank you for the $1. Kazin with the £1 lira I don't know what that number is, but thank you so much,
I
Kazan,
think that's a pound.
for the pound. We're sending you a pound back, like a fist pound. Not anything more intense than that. Don't worry about it, Kazan. But we really appreciate the donation. You're a glowing star in a very milky black night, and we stare up at you and marvel at your far-flung, light years away glow. You are a glimpse into the storied past of this incredible cosmos. So thank you for that, Kazan. That's wonderful.
Stephen, that's 3 far-flungs.
Ah, damn it, you're right. Yeah, I'm dipping into the well while I try to weave oratorical structures from nothing. All right, if I do, what's the consequence if I do another far flung? What's the consequence?
And we deduct money from your till.
Yeah, I got to give the money back. I got to tip it right back. Thank you, Kazan. Let's see. What am I gonna? Okay, I keep wanting to crawl down onto these graphic elements, but then the head is really the thing that needs help. I gotta rotate this whole thing and just pick away at this head. Vaco draws with the BGN 5. I'm not sure what what currency is BGN, but Vaco, thank you so much for the donation. We really appreciate it. Vaco, you're not far flung. That's.
You're very near flung.
You're near flung. You're right at hand, honestly. You're basically over our shoulders, and we appreciate your watchful eye. We're always careful to do our best work in order to not draw your eternal ire. So thank you, Vaco Draws. What advice would you? I'm glad you didn't spit out your soda all over your laptop. What advice would you give to starting artists who want to make YouTube videos? Any mental traps to watch out for? Thank you for inspiring me. Well, I'm very happy to have provided some inspiration. I was very lucky to have the help of modern day James, Ahmed Al-Duri, people who had been doing this stuff for a while when I started out. So I got to pick their brain. And what I learned from them is that it's best if you start off doing exactly what you want to do, right? That raises a lot of challenges that can produce a lot of fear, because you might feel like, oh, well, exactly the thing that I want to do is too weird or too niche or too specific, and it's going to make growth slow. No one's going to know to look for that. How am I ever going to get found? But geez, having done that and having not sort of trapped myself in expectations I wasn't willing to fulfill, I have found it incredibly liberating. So I would be really honest with yourself about what kind of content would you make if no one was watching? No, worse than that. What content would you make such that you would hope no one would watch it? Like, what would scare you to make that, but you love making it, but you're like, oh my God, if I put this out there, I hope literally no one hears me say this, no one watches me do this, please don't let anyone see this. That's probably a good sign. That's probably what you want to go out there and do. And then expect that there's just going to be very little movement on it for like 2 years or something like that. That's what I would say. And then don't give up, you know. It would also be something that really helped me was to go through a period of very high output briefly so that I could confirm that I really liked doing what I thought was a good idea. So 2 Octobers ago, I posted a video every day for a month. So every day in October, I put up a new drawing companion. And I was like, well, I'm going to find out fast if this is sustainable for me. If I can do one every day for a month, that probably means that I enjoy doing it if I still like it at the end. And I did. I still enjoyed it. And that gave me a lot of motivation to continue. And even after a month, I still had things to say. So I was like, all right, I think this is truly something I'm into. And probably nobody else in the world is or would think it was ill-advised. So
has it only been 6 months since your first drawing companion?
No, it's been a couple years now.
What?
Oh, sorry, that's got to be loud. That's the dog timer. Would you mind taking them out to use the bathroom in some reasonable time frame? Such a serene right nipple. Yeah, you know. Monsters have very calm nipples. It's because they choose to have nipples. You know, that's a part of their form that they have elected for themselves. Thanks for the plug, Max. I can confirm that Max is not Max is not a paid actor. He has not been compensated for his testimonial. But yeah, Ghost or C, Secrets of Shading is really it's hard for me now when someone's like, can you give me some tips on shading? I have 5 hours of things to say about shading, and they're in that video. So I really have to point you towards that. If I had to sum it up in one pithy phrase, it's stop thinking about it as shading. You're just drawing on the inside of the form. Eliminate the part of your mind that thinks you're doing something other than drawing when you start shading, and that will make your shading better. This has enough powder on it that I think I got to use the teeny tiny pencil now to try to get some of these forms. Sam Kelly with another super chat. Sam, are you trying to bribe me here? Do you think I'm some sort of venal fool who is susceptible to bribery and manipulation? You're right. You're mostly right. Yeah. What are your thoughts on construction drawing, like Bridgman building, even anatomy and heads with boxes? I love it. I copied Bridgman a lot when I was young. He was one of my first introductions to anatomy, but mainly I would say what Bridgman is teaching you is draftsmanship. That's what he focuses on. And I would go to him for that. It can be a little difficult because if you're going there without a lot of anatomical knowledge, it can be very difficult to parse out his drawings. They're not always the most clear, but the way he draws, the vigor, the construction quality, the clarity of the forms, and especially the insertions. The clarity of the insertions is something that's very difficult for people to grasp. He's great for that. So go to him for draftsmanship, not necessarily anatomy, but I still use all of those principles all the time, and I see a lot of Bridgman in Frazetta, and Frazetta is probably the artist that I've copied the most and tried to learn the most from. All right, let me read some chats here. BGN is Bulgaria's currency. I'll have to remember that. Graphic design almost exclusively became bachelor's or higher degree required about 15 years back. If it's still so, answer for Colin is to check the job banks. And if degrees still required, yes, get one. Yeah, I wish I knew more specifically about just graphic design, but I have to be careful about what I say there because I really only know about illustration and design. And yeah, degrees are really not very important there. Like entertainment design. Kieronald Art says that he has sent that video to so many people. It's amazing. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Any tips on building contrast of values when shading? Press darker than you think. It's very, if you're working traditionally, it's very hard to get dry media like pencil to go sufficiently dark, and your eye is sort of opening up and allowing for a wider value range than the audience is really going to see. So press really hard when you're doing a dark area. That's my main tip there. Because otherwise, there's no right answers. Otherwise, a complete picture is really a balance between high contrast areas and low contrast areas, arranged such that they set each other off. So there's really no pocket answers for that once you move beyond that overall tip. You really need to base it on the picture and what's going to work for the picture. I feel like what is severely lacking in most art tutorials is the emphasis on form and understanding how it works. I feel that way, but I'm form obsessed. It's not everybody's kind of art, that's for sure. I just joined the stream, but for this work you should have like more than 1 million subs. Very kind of you, Oscar Animations. I'm having fun with this drawing. I'm doing it for an upcoming drawing companion on Art Block that I really liked the way that it came out, my outline for it, and I got excited about it, and I thought, you know what, this one could probably use a drawing made just for it. So I'm excited to put that one together. I've been picking away at this one since Sunday. So I've been doing it in the mornings for a couple hours, or like 3 hours every morning since Sunday. So 5-ish days now. I thought the way he constructed the calf into upper leg was revelatory. Yeah, he's got all sorts of stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, James is very, very on the nose there. Like the ingenuity of his constructions is really invaluable. But if you're trying to learn the specifics of anatomy from him, that's not really going to work. You need some side help with that. But the constructions, those are gold. Do you have any advice on how to start a drawing, like how to use gesture? I think it depends for every kind of art. Again, it's very difficult unless you know the goal you have in mind, right? Because I can't even say something like, gesture is the essence of everything, right? Like it has to have good gesture, which might be the closest thing to an art rule. But guess what? If you want to make a beautiful career out of doing production design character drawings, gesture might hurt you. You know, like these characters just need to be standing straight up and down. So that's actually what you need to be able to convey effectively. So there's no real good pocket answer for that, unfortunately. I would say know what the idea is for a drawing. Really, really think about that for a little bit. And if you can, I would sit and visualize before you start drawing. I went through a very weird phase back in college where, I remember I was doing this after I'd come home from work. I was doing these pieces for myself, and I went through a phase where what I would do is I would say, all right, I've got 2 hours that I'm going to work on this sketch. If I'm going to work on it for 2 hours, I'm going to start my timer, and I'm going to sit and think about it. Visualize it in my head for a full half hour before I start working. So I'd spend a half hour of my 2 hours on psychotically imagining the image. And I'd try to like visualize different parts of it in as much detail as I could. And I'd spend some time pretending I was painting it in my head and thinking about like this stroke in front of that stroke, this behind this in front of that, and trying to imagine a process for that piece. And I don't do that anymore, so it wasn't perfect, but it was useful. And having gone that far with it did always remind me to try to be more thoughtful about my pictures. So I would think about things like that when you start. Just try to have a really strong opinion about what the heck your picture is actually about, you know? Yeah, Modern Day James should start a YouTube channel, for sure. Christian Beltran, you love the work, thank you. Very kind. Hello to Ireland, thank you for the love. Will the stream be Abe? Well, I don't think it's Abe now, but if it is Abe, it'll continue to be Abe. I'm assuming you mean will it be available afterwards? Yeah, I don't delete the streams. They sit on the channel. You just need to go to the live tab on the channel to find them. There's like 4 in there now or something like that. Colin Redwood blasting more money into my bank account. Unbelievable. You're going to upset my bank account. It's going to be like, no, don't do that. You're filling me up too much. I've always struggled with composition. I can kill a portrait, but I can't draw movement or multiple subjects in a scene. Any tips to improve? Well, if the compositions that you're looking for are movement or multiple subjects, pictures with multiple subjects, their composition is usually dominated by where people's glance is going. So you can, when there's a lot of heads, if you have multiple subjects, if you just point people's heads and where they're looking, following the curve or the line of however you want the comp to go, that will really dominate how people look around the picture. In terms of beyond that, in terms of just straight up action, very few concrete rules for that, but one of the closest things is that all pictures only have one long drive, right? If you're in a rectangular composition, let me show you my full drawing here. This one doesn't use it, but just to make the point. this picture, any picture, is rectangular, right? If you're looking for action, if you're looking for thrust, a lot of that is determined by the length of a through line through an action or through a gesture. In any rectangle, what is the longest through line available? It is the complete diagonal from one corner to another. That is the longest possible straight line in any rectangular composition. So as much as there's no real answers in art, this is one of the few things that comes close. So if you want, let's say, a leaping full body punch to feel as long and dramatic as possible, you could do it all the way straight up and down the composition. But theoretically, that will always be technically inferior to arranging it along the perfect diagonal, right? Now that's way too generalized. Obviously, that doesn't mean that if you want action, the picture is always better if it's aligned with the complete diagonal. But geometrically speaking, that is true and something to think about. So if you want a punch to rock across a, let's say, 16 by 19 composition, don't trap it running a horizontal along the bottom of the frame. Like if you're looking at the camera feed here, like don't trap it here running along the bottom. It's always going to feel like it's laying flat and stagnant. Run it. That way. That's going to make it feel more dramatic and exciting.
Uh-oh. She's on
What?
the move.
She's thinking about peeing? We can't let her pee. Put the other dog on her.
Come on, let's go.
I heard a story from Jason Sealer's podcast where Nathan Folks spent 30 minutes planning out a painting of a swan that he executed in 30 seconds. Leave it to Nathan Folks. I believe it. I believe it. Amazing work. What mechanical pencil you're using? This one did not have a lot of mechanical pencil. This is a 0.3 that I use when there's a lot of graphite down on the paper, but the vast majority of this work has been done with black colored pencils. If I could only use one tool throughout whole drawings for the rest of my life, I'd have to pick black colored pencils. They're the most flexible. I don't only use them because graphite is great, but they are, if I was in a pinch, if I needed to do a drawing start to finish with only one tool, I would just use black colored pencils and keep them sharp. Ayo, this is kind of sick. Well, I'm glad you think so. It is kind of sick. The demon feels healthy. You know, he feels like he's in perfect health. But you might feel kind of sick if you actually saw him, if you witnessed his glorious visage, if you were to gaze upon his horrifying form in reality. I'm so happy I get to stream traditional drawing now. I'm very glad I set this up. It's a lot of fun.
Is this your first time doing it?
I think so. I think the closest or at least on the channel. I used to stream. I used to stream traditional drawing on Twitch a lot, but with an old setup that was really quite low quality. Quite low quality. It's fun to have the high quality setup now. What if it's an uppercut? You got me there. You got me there. I see a super chat. I'll get down to that. How can someone get better at design theory to be able to creatively put out more work? Just practice it. For everything like that in art, the only real answer is to practice. And that sucks because people don't want to hear that, right? People don't want to know that the secret to drawing great heads is to draw literally 8,000 of them. But it is the truth. And it will always be the truth. It will always be the truth. So, Gooch Canoe...
What'd you call me?
All right. Gooch Canoe says, "This is so damn good. Take my money. Thank you so much, Gooch Canoe. Gooch Canoe. You're a glorious canoe." I think I remember. I think I actually took you around Lake George once, years and years ago. Yeah, I think I rented you for like $40 an hour, and we paddled softly around Lake George, and checked out pine trees and scoped out some ducks. together. Well, you know, I felt like I was alone, but yeah, I guess the revelation that you were actually that gooch canoe means that I wasn't alone at that time. You were actually watching over me the whole time. So that's pretty exciting. That's definitely very exciting. Have a good night. Awesome sism. And who is with you? Who are you again? That's my wife. We're just sitting here working. She's doing her work, I'm doing my work. On this lovely Friday night, and we are surrounded by dogs who are constantly threatening to pee on the ground. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Just one is constantly threatening to pee on the ground.
Yeah, the other one's got it, has had it under control for a few years now, but the other one is fresh to the world. Her consciousness just came online. She only recently experienced the irreversible trauma of birth into the world of mortals, so she's got a lot to parse out.
Frick.
Let's see.
Wait.
You okay over there? Something broken?
It's okay.
Maybe a silly question, but let's say you're doing a drawing in one medium, but think it'll look better in another. Do you go for this being a drawing do you go for that being that a drawing that looks like drawings like this take for quite a while? I like the medium that I work in. I like pencil drawing. Most of my ideas at this point come to me as pencil drawings, but these days I really only do two mediums. I do digital for color work, and I do my pencil drawings. And so it's pretty easy for me to parse out what I want to do. I love pencil for its totally transcendent illusionistic quality. You can draw something in pencil very realistically and convincing and show it to someone, and they'll be like, oh, that's absolutely that thing, and feel like nothing's missing, even though an essential quality of reality is missing, color. And to me, that's a magic trick that there's no equal to. So I've been obsessed with pencil drawing for my whole life. Partly because of that. I can't get enough of that, you know. I don't like painting in color as much because once color is introduced, it's so close to reality that it starts to demand a lot of verisimilitude, which is beautiful when it's achieved, but at that level I find it a little bit stultifying for my process. I'd rather just like create form and have the audience believe it, but be making things that are totally fantastical. This is so exciting. Well, I'm glad you think so. I was wondering your thoughts on how hard it is to get far in art industry, concept art, illustration, without any degrees in art. It's not hard. It is hard, but it's not because of degrees. The degrees have nothing to do with it. It's difficult to get far in concept art and illustration because every job is different, and that's unfortunate. Concept art is a job that we all pretend is one job that you can like apply for over and over again, and if you have these skills, you can do it, and it's not. It's not that at all. Every concept art job is completely different, and they're all masquerading as if they're all the same job. And illustration is the same. And that's why it's really hard to give people good advice and to get traction, even if you're pretty good. You know, I know a lot of people who are pretty damn good at this stuff and have a really hard time making a career out of it or making a living out of it. And you combine the lack of transparency and the lack of explanatory power with sort of the current cultural moment where things like digital art are really not valued super high, and people feel like it's all disposable, and something about our current cultural era has convinced artists that it's essential that they not take themselves seriously and that they sort of look down on themselves and, I don't know, I just like to draw stuff. It's no big deal. Of course it's a big deal. Of course it's a big deal that you are willing to spend thousands of hours of your life for reasons you can't explain, weaving stuff out of nothing. Yeah, that's not important. Oh yeah, that's just whatever. Who cares? Really, really, I find that so annoying. I really don't. I don't understand the arguments for that. And I love a lot of the artists who make those arguments. I just cannot agree with them at all, as much as I wish I could. And I really would like to, because it would make me much less cringeworthy if I could find a way to agree with them. But I simply cannot. So sorry, that's not a fun answer at all, but it is my honest answer. It's hard because it's a confusing world. There's a lot of misunderstandings, and even to be good is not enough. You need to kind of be, you got to be great to make it, you know? You got to be really, really great. If you want it to only be about the art. If you're willing to open up and, you know, find ways to connect with people and brand yourself differently and sort of leave behind the commercial trappings of an imagined role like concept artist, then a lot of other doors open up. Hey, Knox. Hello, hello. All right, let's see what's up. Hey, did you go to college? Yes, I did. I went to Art Center College of Design, and I teach there now, actually. Yeah. Not all the time. I'm just teaching one class this semester, but I did go to college, so I have that experience, and I've been on the other side of it now. This is not live. Well, it is live. There might be lag. You mean there's lag? Hey, I wanted to create something surreal, completely like something that has no previous existence. Like if I think of sketch something, I end up creating something similar. Any advice to eliminate that? I don't actually believe there's any way to create something completely alien. I think no matter what, you will always be remixing things that you have seen or been influenced by. So there's the small chance that you will be the first artist in history to tap into something else and create something utterly original and alien and totally divorced from its cultural context. So since you might be that, I have to tell you in good conscience to pursue it. But if you're anything but that, I would recommend leaving that worry behind. I would shamelessly allow yourself to be influenced and to be moved by the beauty of nature and the other art that you've seen and the sophisticated thoughts of artists that you like and admire and their works. Like, just let yourself be crazy influenced. I think the idea that you're going to be able to, in a world where you're completely saturated with imagery, and imagery that you're taking in subconsciously as well, you're not taking it in super consciously, you're not filtering anything. I think it's completely crazy to think that you're going to do anything completely original. It's always going to be some modification. And then on the most meta level, you're always going to be operating within the realm of your taste, right? Even if you do come up with something alien, do you like it? Because if you like it, that's the realm of your taste. And your taste is determined by, well, a multiplicity of things that we really can't track, but it's certainly not nothing. It's determined by everything that you've seen and felt and experienced and liked and not liked. Your drawing reminds me of biblically accurate angels. I really like it. Well, put that on my tombstone. I'm very happy to hear that. That's one of my some sort of getting some little bit of the vibe of the sacred without using the typical tropes of sacred art is kind of low-key a big goal for me in my art. So I appreciate the sentiment. Thank you. It's a little hard to work on that head while I'm fielding chat, so I'm going to start darkening some of these graphic elements here, which is a little easier for me. From your experiences at Art Center, do you think it can be good for new artists, and do you think it can help us improve? Absolutely. I mean, I think any kind of artist would benefit from a place like Art Center, but there's a lot of other considerations than that. I mean, Art Center is prohibitively expensive, you know, and I don't think anyone would be upset at me for saying that, because it is just factually correct. So there are definitely, the good thing about a school, and this goes for almost all schools, is the network. You make friends, and you have access to people who want to help you make friends and make connections and things like that. And that's more important than anything else. But it is available at all sorts of schools, at all sorts of levels. So that is the great thing about going to an art school. But if you don't want to spend, you know, whatever it is, just hundreds of thousands of dollars, or if you can't, like most people can't, there's other ways to build a network. You know, you need to add that. You don't get to be given it for free. You know, you don't get it as a byproduct of taking your classes and things like that. That's a privilege of going to art school. You need to add it to what you spend time on consciously. So you need to go events and meet people and send cold emails and, you know, get ignored over and over again, and go to cons and make friends and follow up with them and things like that. You need to get really good at all that stuff. The concept art and entertainment industries are only kind of based on raw skill. A lot of people hate hearing that too, but the majority of jobs in this industry are got by recommendation. People like to work with their friends, and that is any industry that likes to put on a face and be like, that's not true. We like to work with the best. Every time you hear someone say that, that means they like to work with their friends. So don't trust them when they shoot that at you. Finally joined one live, Ozzy Chambers. Well, welcome. Glad to have you here live. I'll tell you that. Let's see what's going on here. That's funny, Max. Thank you for that. Did you ever find it exhausting to add more details to your drawings while you were first learning? Am I wasting my time by spending 4 to 5 hours on one piece, or should I just move on to another form? Okay, this is something I need to say because this is a real problem for beginners. 4 to 5 hours on a drawing is nothing. That's nothing. A finished drawing takes tens and tens of hours, right? You shouldn't feel worried about how long you're spending on a drawing until you've hit 100 hours. And it's easy for beginners to not understand that because they're used to seeing content sped up and things like that. 4 hours is nothing. And the stress that you're experiencing when you're 4 hours into a drawing is not really about the drawing. It's your own insecurity about not knowing how to finish the drawing. It's your insecurity about not knowing if it's the right drawing that you should be doing, not knowing if it's going to wind up in your portfolio, if you should maybe be practicing abstract studies before doing finished drawings like this. And the truth is, you always need to be studying and you always need to be finishing. You should never be in a period in your art practice where you're not finishing stuff. You need to practice finishing stuff because it's its own skill set. And yeah, 4 hours is nothing. That's nothing. I'll invest 5 hours in a drawing, literally willing to throw it in the garbage afterwards, even if it's great. It doesn't register. It doesn't tick up the meter at all, you know?
Not apparent.
For example, this drawing, I spent 3 hours on this drawing this morning doing the beginning of this, and that was maybe half an hour of drawing max, and then I spent the other 2 hours just darkening the background. Oh well, that's how long it takes to make drawings. That is just how long it takes. And digital doesn't change it much. It just raises the expectation for finish. What are your thoughts on ateliers such as Florence Academy of Art? I think it's great. I mean, if you want to do that kind of work, if you want to do finished academic work, there's very few better places to learn how to do that. But it seems there's some sort of trend of people going to those places when they want to do more imaginative work, and then they get frustrated when those places don't teach that stuff. And yeah, I mean, that's something to watch out for, but you really should go in knowing what you're trying to get out of that institution, right? So you should go into an environment like that knowing I'm here for the technical chops, but I need to practice the imaginative work on my own, because this is not really the milieu to learn that, you know? He's right about that, because even though I'm a beginner, I just draw even if it sucks. Is it better or worse if we go back to old sketches and rework them, or leave them alone? It depends on your process. I mean, I don't usually go back to old stuff. I just like to, I would rather put my energy into making new things, but artists a million times better than me, Claire Wendling is a beautiful example. She has a really interesting art book called Desk 2.0, and it's interesting because there's a Desk 1.0. So she has these two art books where she wasn't satisfied, I guess, with how the first one came out. So Desk 2.0 is she went back in and she redrew everything in the book. She took a second pass on it, and it's, wow, fascinating, you know? So I wouldn't do that, but it does work for some people's process. And you should probably trust Claire Wendling on that. I mean, there's probably not a better living draftsman alive right now. I'd be, I mean, for my taste, I look at Claire Wendling's drawings and I'm like, yep, she is probably the greatest living drafts person. That's cool. Good job. Excellent, Claire. I had a texture on this bulge here and I kind of lost it. I don't know if it's worth reclaiming. It was like, I wanted to do some sort of like fern or algae texture, but I can already tell it's time to let it go. It's not going to survive. It's not going to survive. Didn't I say I wasn't going to do this? All right, I'm all over the place. I just want to talk to people, really. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh? Oh, you can't say that. Sorry.
That was my bad. My dog has a Pavlovian response to that phrase. My YouTube is telling me that it's having some trouble streaming. So if anything gets totally chaotic, y'all can let me know. Let's see what's going on. What do I need to practice to be able to shade like you? If shading in particular is your concern, check out my Gumroad and the link in the description. I have a video called Secrets of Shading, and that is 5 hours of me as best as I can. In those 5 hours, I just list everything that I think matters to me when I shade, but it's really hard for me to just give a quick answer to that because I tried to write it all down or say it all, and it takes 5 hours to say, you know, with demos. So I would highly recommend checking that out. I want to begin doing anatomical studies. Advice: how do you really gauge your progress on learning anatomy? My basic process for learning anatomy would be start with tracings. So take masterworks and have reference books open and take tracing paper or a layer in Photoshop and draw over the masterwork and place the muscles based on your reference. And once you've done that, then maybe move on to doing some drawings based on reference where you're not tracing them. Try to draw the reference and then still do a sort of écorché, like place all the muscles, but you're freehanding everything. And then every day when you've done that, let's say you practice anatomy analytically for an hour, add a half hour to that after, where you just freely draw figures from your head. So don't give up the practice of actually internalizing those things by sketching, by practicing sketching. That's how I did it, and it worked for me. I would just be very cautious of separating those steps and being like, all right, I'm just going to do tracings and learn anatomy abstractly for a year, and then I'll start sketching again. Don't do that. Huge waste of time. Huge waste of time. You're just going to forget everything. You need to be every day with every lesson integrating. I need to carve something interesting into this because
why not?
got quite soft. Just when I was taking the darkening pass on this like welt that I have on the head, it because I was using the pretty rough colored pencils, just got very formless. So I'm beating it up and trying to get a texture back. What do you teach in art college? Right now I'm teaching like very senior level coursework. So the class that I teach right now is called Dramatic Narrative, and it's basically a 14-week long boot camp, if you can call something that's 14 weeks long a boot camp. But it's basically a 14-week long boot camp where for the first third of the class I teach the artists story ideas, like base stuff that they need to know to make it in the entertainment world, right? So 3-act structure, 5-act structure, how stories are told. And as I teach them this, they pitch their own stories. So they try to come up with an original project, like an original story from scratch. And then we vet that. They spend the first half of the class doing concept work for their original story. And it's informed by all of the story learning that they're doing. And then the second half of the class, they create story frames, like key frames, that tell the story sequentially and try to capture the vibe of the project. And that whole time, they're working towards a tight 5-minute spoken pitch that they can use to communicate the project to others. So it's very senior level stuff. It's like you got to have your drawing under your belt to do something like that. It's great fun, and it's beautiful to see, 10 completely unique stories sort of blossom out of the class in such a compressed time frame. And it is very compressed. Doing your own story is really something that takes years. So no problem, art fan. Do you have a gumroad on public speaking? No, I don't, but I could make one. I've crashed a couple classes to give some pointers on that stuff. So maybe in the future I'll do that if there's enough interest. But I think most artists are interested in drawing, that's for sure. It is an essential skill to be able to present your ideas well, though. If you want to go into the commercial world. Obviously not if you kind of want to do the classic holding up and being on your own and the ecstatic joy of creation. If you want to go that kind of art route, no, you don't really need to be able to explain yourself. You don't need to justify it to anybody. Drawing is its own reward. That advice about anatomy, would you say it applies to everything else? What I mean is, should you do an hour of study and then an hour of sketching from imagination? I'm sure it wouldn't work for everyone, but that's what I did with almost everything, and it worked for me, if you can trust me. Samueru, thank you so much for the kind review of Secrets of Shading. That was one I was very happy to get out. This stream is so good. Oh, I'm glad you like it. Thanks for being here, everybody. It's a lot of fun. Any tips on inking? Depends what kind of inking you want to do. If you want to do like tight comic book inking, I haven't done a lot of that, so I really don't have a lot of tips. But I like to ink just as if I'm drawing, like regular. Like, let me get a piece of paper here. When I draw with ink, I don't put on a different mindset. I don't say, okay, now I'm inking. I have a pen in my hand and I'm sketching. So I move my hand exactly the same way that I do when I'm drawing with pencil. I try not to like tighten up. I don't want to go into some artificial inking mindset for no real reason, right? It feels like that's just like a forced thing because I think this is some sort of particular job I'm supposed to do or something like that. Or there's a right way to ink. It's like, no, you're just drawing. You're always just drawing. So I just draw as if I'm holding a pencil. Oof, this paper is killing my fountain pen. Nope, dead. Demo done. But that's how I draw with ink. Same goes for, if you use a brush pen, for example, I do the same thing. It doesn't matter that it's a big, bold tool. I just draw freely. That's my priority when I'm making work. It's like, if I really want to tighten up on this, there's no reason that I can't sketch it like this so that it exists in an ink language, right? It has big shapes. It has a bold statement. It has a simplified look. There's no reason that I can't sketch in this language so that I'm not trying to transfer like hairline thin pencil lines into something that's really not that, right? I can sketch it like this so that it's in its appropriate language and then just take a second pass later. I can just put a tracing paper over it or put a light box over it and then just do the type pass on top of that. But I don't really see any real reason to think of inking as like a different mindset that I need to put on or something like that. I need to make sure there's no ink on my hand that I'm going to get on my drawing now. I gotta sharpen a couple pencils here. Excuse me. Don't mind me. Brace your ears. Actually, I'll just mute. Thank you. My mute button on my microphone is a little stuck. So it often screws me over that way. Have you ever had it is on now, right? Yeah. Have you ever had a moment where you're working on a sketch and start to stiffen up because you felt it wasn't going to come out how you hoped it would? Yeah, of course. I mean, that happens all the time, but it with experience, as you do this stuff longer and longer and longer, you start to take that stuff less seriously. And after a while, just through sheer volume, you kind of lose the energy to stiffen up. It's like, am I really worried about ruining this drawing when it might be my millionth drawing? Like, there's been so many before, there's been so many after. Almost universally, I've only been disappointed that I didn't beat them up and destroy them and sort of go hog wild with my mistakes and things like that. So after a while, the sheer volume that you produce affects the way that you think and do the work. So in a useful way.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Kat. What's up? I missed Mog's question. How do you describe the feeling of having dog hair on your drawing? By turns infuriating and comforting. That's how I would describe it. I gotta break up these sort of spaghetti lines that I wound up putting in here. I always tell myself I should just finish spots while streaming instead of doing designing work. It's very difficult to design effectively when your attention is divided.
Yeah. What the hell did I do?
Does music help you get in the zone or distract from it? I think distraction is the main point. I mean, you can be distracted by anything, right? So music you can be really jiving on a song one day and it's keeping you at your drawing board. It's making you want to be in this fun place where you're listening to a playlist or an album that you love, and it's keeping you at the drawing board. And there, I would say it's not distracting. And then other days you just feel like I always listen to music, so I'm gonna listen to music, but you're really not into music today. You're feeling kind of fussy, and then you just wind up every 2 seconds you stop drawing so that you can change the playlist or look for another track, and then before you know it, you're spending more time on Spotify than you're spending looking at the drawing. So I don't really think it's about anything in particular, like what kind of podcast, what kind of music, or should you listen to music at all. It's just distraction. It's, are you distracted? And then when you're distracted, are you willing to stop it? Are you willing to address your distraction? Or do you just let it kind of peeve you and upset you? I'm noticing this more as I go. I feel like my technique is loosening up the better I get, and I worry less about things that don't matter. Indeed. Props. Keep looking for stuff like that. Is ego important as an artist? Only in rate negotiations. Everywhere else it is not important. Like Terrence McKenna said, you need the ego to know whose mouth to put the food in at dinner. let's see how I can rearrange some of this stuff. Master. I have trouble thinking of ideas I want to draw or design. I've tried taking up watching a few movies to think of more ideas and just overall widen my visual library. I've tried writing many words that come to mind onto paper, but that method got stale. If you're having a lot of trouble with stuff like that, I would recommend raising the stakes. That seems to be the only thing that works for people with regularity. So I would try to start a project or write a project that scares you. Like make something that's so personal that you are convinced that it would reveal too much about you to put it out in the world. Like it's something that you need to hide from your mom or your dad or your brother and your sister. Like this is a thing that like really is so deep inside, and I'm definitely not going to make it, because if I were ever to make it, I would have to ensure that nobody could ever see it and then make that thing. That's the only thing that I see work with regularity. You've got to raise the stakes. You've got to find some way to make you care more about your own work. I think a lot of people don't talk about this because it sounds very weird out of context, but like for me, and I think this goes for a lot of people who have been doing this for a long time and do good work, you know. I love my work. On a good day, I'm my own biggest fan. I'm doing exactly what I wish someone else would do. Almost every drawing that I do that I spend a lot of time in, I almost have a fed up feeling. I'm like, well, if no one's going to make it, I will, because obviously it's great. And I love it. I love it. And I wish I could tell you how, I mean, if you've never experienced it, like when a drawing's going well, it's like there's no greater high, you know. It's like it makes me want to jump up, it makes me want to dance, I sort of run around the house, I'm in a good mood, you know, I'm feeling snappy. It's like you should look for that in your work. And most of your favorite artists a lot of them are experiencing their practice that way. I feel like people don't really talk about that a lot, and so it can get lost on people in the middle of the journey. I think it's very easy for people to wind up in sad middle areas where they're like, I'll enjoy my practice if it makes other people happy. No. Later. Please yourself first. What do you like to read for inspiration? Anything occult? Not really anything occult, unless you count Paradise Lost as occult. I kind of experienced that particular piece of art as pretty occult. But yeah, I mean, I read a decent amount of nonfiction stuff. I like fantasy. I like a good sci-fi. I really like, you know what inspires me the most? It's anything that is about what people really believe. That's what inspires me the most. So it doesn't matter if it's nonfiction, fiction, if it's a podcast, if it's an interaction with another person. The things that I remember most in my life are things that I hear people say or express or dare to propose, that it's like, wow, you really believe that. Like, you really think that that's really true about the world. That stuff is my favorite stuff in the world. I find that stuff super inspirational. So that's why I love, like, I definitely have a guilty pleasure for, like, conspiracy theories. I love hearing people talk about the absolutely outlandish things that they think might be true about the world. I love just listening to, like, kooks talk about how they were abducted by aliens and things like that. And yeah, that stuff's just the best for me. I love that stuff because it shakes you out of that kind of little feeling that we can all get, the sort of dreary Monday morning psychology that a lot of us can fall into, where we look out at the world and we're like, it's all rather simple, isn't it? Yes, it's all solid through and through. And hearing the words of people who really have like a very different viewpoint it's always pretty exciting. You don't have to believe any of it, right? Like, there's literally no reason to be influenced in your beliefs by those things. There sometimes things can crawl into your head and really seem like so rationally cogent that they do kind of change your opinions, but they don't have to. You can just sort of I sort of dine on those things a la carte in a rather insensitive and pretentious way, and I'll never give it up. She wants up. Have you ever digitally colored your pencils? I try with every single one, and I have never succeeded to my satisfaction. So yes, I have attempted, but I don't think I've ever even shared a single one, because I've never gotten them to the point that they pleased me more than the pencil drawing. So even when I've put a lot of time into them and almost made them complete paintings, I just look at the pencil drawing and I'm like, it's better. So I've never shared one, I don't think. But I've done it to every single one of my pencil drawings. I run the experiment every time, and I do it a different way every time, because I'm like, there's gotta be a way, but I can't find a way. And I secretly love that.
No, you're such a little freak. Thanks. Winnie.
Hey Roman says, hey Steven and Mrs. Wife, thanks
Hello.
for streaming. Love to draw while listening to your advices, even though it's 2 a.m. already. Hope you're doing well. I'm doing very well. I'm doing great.
Go to bed.
That is very late though, yeah. If you're drawing though, I know that can feel good. Do get some rest at some point though. Caught me live. Nice. Well, thank you for being here, Ballpoint. Oh man, I could move on to the wing too. I should do some work on that wing. Should violence, erotica, and more extreme subjects be more acceptable in mainstream art?
You want? You want to tackle that one?
Well, I mean, I don't think there's any rules in art, right? Like, there's no such thing as mainstream art. I'm not really convinced about that. There's stuff that has more exposure, but the stuff that has the most exposure has an equal amount of hate that it receives, along with all of the love that it gets. So I wouldn't put too much stock in what is working in the mainstream,
No.
Gustave Doré did my favorite Paradise Lost illustrations. Mine too. He was the best. Him and his engravers. Credit where credit is due. Gustave Doré and his engravers were one of the greatest art teams in the history of art.
What was that? Oh, sweep.
You ever listen to Coast to Coast? I don't think so. Your drawings remind me of Peter Moorbacher's work. Interesting. Well, I guess he does do a lot of angel influenced work, yeah, so I could see the connection. We definitely have, I think I've only seen his digital stuff, so we're very different on the surface, but I can absolutely see the connection. Pete Moorbacher's a beast, huh? Also, the dedication. Damn, how do you do that one project for so long? Man, if he could just bottle that and sell it as a chemical cocktail. Hello, Ferenga. How do you get yourself to study fundamentals like perspective, design, theory without being distracted or bored? I always give up when I try it on my own. I didn't have a hard time. I always liked studying. It always seemed like an easy way to be productive without having to be super thoughtful. So I personally, with my temperament, I didn't have much trouble. But if you have trouble, you should try never doing it unless you're doing it for a creative project you actually care about, right? So literally never practice anatomy unless you're doing it on a particular finished piece that has an anatomical moment that you're trying to make look good. That is totally valid. So you should give that a shot. That way you don't waste your energy doing stuff that you don't even care about, and instead you have energy in the tank to do the studies, and it produces finished pieces. Oh, 6 a.m. for Farango. Well, that's very nice of you to be here so early. What parts of your drawings do you usually use the mechanical pencils? I usually do it for the initial sketch. I like to sketch with the mechanical pencil because it's so fine, so it doesn't produce a thick line that I need to adjust for later. I like that. So I'll use it for the initial sketch because it's nice and light and fine and doesn't need a lot of modulation later. And then I'll use it in the lights. I really like to use them in the lights because they put down so very little graphite, and the lights I like to keep the lights compressed in my drawings. And I'll also, there is a particular stage where, like an area like this, where there's really a ton of graphite down or medium, it's very hard to get an area like this darker by just using the same pencil and darkening. Actually, an area like that, if you take the smallest little mechanical pencil you have and just start filling in dots at that point, that will darken it faster than using a soft dark pencil at that point. You could see it happening here. So it only took a second, but that spot is noticeably darker than the rest. And it would be really hard and slippery to get that with the darker pencil. It's really easy with the sharp point. And that's just because now now I need to darken that whole patch. I shouldn't have done that. But that's just because it's getting into the little bits of grain that the thick stubby pencils failed to get into. You okay?
Yeah.
Everything exploding? What should I do? Maybe I should go over to that wing. Yeah, let me do a little work on this wing.
You know, it's getting awfully close to dinner time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, 3 minutes away. All right. Yeah, I'm getting hungry too. How long have we been on? We've been streaming for an hour and a half. All right, we're going to be on for a few more minutes. So if anyone has any last minute questions, you can throw them in there. Let me look at this while I do a little work on this wing. How does someone approach scenes they want to draw in ink with few enough mistakes to pull off complex scenes and multiple characters? I would sketch them first with pencil and then put them on a light box, personally. I've done a few ink drawings that way. You can also do them digital and then lower the opacity really low and then print them onto the paper that you want to use for the final ink drawing. And the contrast of the ink will be so high compared with the low contrast of the low opacity print that it'll basically disappear in the final. I've done a few drawings that way too. Do you agree that we as artists bring somewhat of a balance to the lives of persons viewing our work? The work is the same, but everyone who views experiences the artwork is affected differently. That must be true some of the time. So yes, I generally agree. But I want to say again, just because this is kind of a big point for me, it's like I personally try to not think a lot about what my artwork means to others. I have a lot of faith that if I do it from the right place and I love doing it and I feel deeply connected with it, that there's a good chance it'll resonate with others and perhaps have that effect with them. But I am very dubious of the idea that spending any amount of time wondering how my art will land on other people and trying to manipulate them, I am very dubious that will produce positive results. Very dubious about that. I think people can detect the stink of a panderer from a mile away, and people can just kind of tell that your whole heart wasn't in it, you know? If I'm doing a drawing, I want to really want to be doing that drawing, you know? And the people who do really really obsess a lot about how things are going to land with their audience, the people who are best at that are the people who get a really bottomless joy out of that. Do you think pencil drawings can... Where's Fanny? She's sleeping. She's having a dream right now. I can see her right over there. Wow, she's out cold. She's got her little mouth open a little bit. Aww. Do you think pencil drawings can have a place in illustration too? Did we feed the dogs dinner?
Didn't you?
I think I did, right?
Feed the dogs dinner?
Yeah, I did.
Steven.
No, I did. No, I know I did because I was up there dancing to WAP while they were eating.
Right.
Yeah, and that was at dinner time. Do you think pencil drawings can have a place in illustration to rival paintings? Is it hard to get paid for drawings? It's hard to get paid for drawings, and it's hard to get paid for paintings. So nothing's easy. No, you're not going to have an easy time in the illustration world because you do paintings. No, I mean, guess what? If you do paintings, guess who your competition is? It's Dan Dos Santos. It's Donato Giancola. It's the best people in the world. People hate hearing this, but there is zero separation in the art world, in the illustration world, by age, experience, anything like that. You've got to be good enough that you can steal a gig from Donato Giancola. And that's it. That's really what the art world is. You're either that good or you're not. Nothing's easy. Let's see. How do you stay with courses? I usually get to a point or assignment. I don't know how exactly to approach it. All right, I'm going to say I'm going to stop drawing here for a bit, and I'm just going to try to wrap up chat, and then we will hop off of here. And I'll start saying my thank yous right now to everybody for hopping in on this chat, and thank you for the donations. That was very kind, those of you that donated. We're gonna turn that money into beautiful experiences, so thank you. Let's see here. Painters, cartoonists, illustrators all pray to the same God, light. Stream times, we've only done a couple, Deirdre and I, but the two that we've done so far we did on Fridays, right? The other one was on a Friday.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I don't really need to be here at all.
We're happy to have you.
That's very nice.
Yeah, I think I'm not going to say we have a real schedule, but we've done it Fridays. Friday seems like a natural time for it to happen. So, oh boy, this is a big question. How to be an artist and not be broke?
Impossible.
You've got to diversify your revenue stream. You know, I've had times in my career where one job could pay for everything, right? Like I was living a comfortable, good life off of one job. And I've had that in multiple situations, right? Not with just one client, but that hasn't been all the time. There's been other times where things have been very thin. And then there's other times where diversifying my revenue stream is the way that I'm making a living off of my art. So I would recommend that's the one that you have the best chance of controlling. So yeah, I would diversify. That's the best way. But it is not easy. I talk about this in a video that I put up recently on the channel, or at least I imply it. The better you get at art, the more you realize that you need more than skill to keep doing it. Because people who will pay for art don't know how to read skill the way that you do, right? Like at a certain point, you hit a skill level where people are just like, wow, you're great. And they don't know the difference between you and Craig Mullins or something like that. Like that stuff only artists know. So you realize like, oh God, once you're in that group, you're like, I'm not making enough money, even though I'm in the same pool as all of these other big people. How am I going to do this? It's like, that's when you start to sweat and you're like, oh my God, it wasn't just about skills. I need to be ingenious about everything, right? And of course you do. You're trying to be an artist. It's been the most impossibly difficult thing for human beings to do for all of recorded history. So yeah, it didn't get easier. It's still hard. So yes, you have to be ingenious. And you got to be really ingenious. And you got to be willing to put in a ton of work. It ain't easy. This is so dope. Where do you get the inspiration for the body markings? You know, it's a design element that has arisen for me over the past few years. And there's personal things with it and things like that. But I just like... I like the counterpoint that it gives me against a pretty solid form that I can achieve. It feels like the decorative flattened elements wrapped around the form, they sing with each other. And I just like the way they look. And they make it's an effect that I have found only looks good in a drawing. And I like that. It sort of like consecrates it. Like, this will only work as a drawing. Good luck ever turning this into a painting. This will all look stupid. Because all of these decorative elements would demand some sort of weird hue variation to make them work as a painting, and that, in my opinion, would kill the form, would fight the form, would distract from the form. So they're really perfectly married in monochrome, and that's why I like them in drawings. I'm not married to any of that. All of those explanations about art is it's all sort of ad hoc nonsense to some extent. I'm just lucky that I can talk through things as I think about them, but I'm not really married to any of that. I just do stuff, you know. All right, going to try to hit as many questions here before I hop off. Let's see. I'm going to try to do lightning round. Love your videos. Thank you. Have you ever made any recurring mistakes throughout your art journey without realizing for a long time? How do you decide when to let go of mistakes or actively fix it? Yes, I have. And I would try to... That's why you need to have a balance between finishing things and doing studies. So in studies, let them go. When finishing things, fix them. And have it clear in your mind whether you're doing studies or if you're finishing something. Do you think trying to go with every piece of advice from professional artists helps you improve or will confuse you and put you in a rut? It will confuse you. There's a poison out there of people spinning off advice that they thought about for less than a second, then continuing to define a year of someone's practice. And that's really unhealthy. Take everything you hear with a grain of salt. You need to make up your own mind. How do you design a portfolio to cater to studios? You should work towards a project. Make it project-based. It should be linked with a story or with a focused theme that you're trying to execute on. You have a nice evening too, Magda. Nice to have you in here. Ward, I'm very happy to provide input. I'm glad you guys are around. Joao asks, what are you drawing tonight? This is a drawing that I've been working on for a few days. Sort of a mirror piece to another piece that I did recently. It's for, I did it to illustrate a drawing companion that I have coming up. How do you approach learning from a self-artist perspective when you only have access to the internet? Do you recommend a certain schedule or a certain order to learn the fundamentals? I would get in with a group, find some friends. You don't necessarily need a mentor. They're useful. They can give you a lot of pointers. But I would, if you want a mentor, I would know what you want to do, know what job you want or what goal you want to hit, and look for a mentor that aligns with that. And beyond that, get into a group, fall in with a group. You need friends. You just need friends. Skills aren't everything in this industry. So I would do that. And then you guys can parse it out together. Ferrying says, hey, Steven, what's your origins and why did you decide to make art your career? Did you have to wrestle with yourself that art, being an entertainment product, is not essential for human life? No, I didn't have to wrestle for it because it's essential for this human life. This human life really needs art. So I've never given a moment's worry to entertainment product, what other people think about it, is it silly, anything like that. No, not at all. It's important to me, and that's more than enough for me. My origins... I came against my will into this world out of my mother 30 years ago, and I started drawing at 5, and I haven't stopped. Hey, I'm a big fan of yours. I'm considered a good artist, but I can't seem to grasp and sustain constant drawing, painting routine. Could you give advice on that, please? I can't seem to grasp and sustain a constant drawing and painting routine. Could you give advice on that, please? For most people who have that problem, It's because they are letting other people determine their routine. So what will solve that for most people is to go through a period where you very earnestly search for what the heck you actually like to do. And then even if it's scary, even if it's frightening, even if it makes you unsure, even if you don't think it'll work, do it. And then you'll never want to stop making work. Thank you for streaming. Discovering you and your videos was a blessing to me. Have a lovely day. Thank you so much. Happy to have you here. Thank you for your input and advice. Have a good night. Thank you. Do you have any advice for artists that have ADHD, can't work on one thing for a long time, and feeling that you have to rush it every time? Here's my disclaimer. You definitely have ADHD, right? Like someone told you you do. You have a real doctor. Of course you do. Of course you have ADHD. And that sucks. I sympathize a lot and it's horrible. And it's really hard for an artist. That's my disclaimer. Here's what you need to do as an artist. When you're making work, stop pretending you know what the hell you are. Stop pretending that you know you have ADHD. Stop pretending that you know that that's going to keep you from making work. Stop pretending that you know you're the kind of person who can't sit here at this desk for an hour, 2 hours, 10 hours at a time, right? Like I said, I know that's wrong. I know that's crazy. I know you have ADHD, and I know ADHD is real, and I know your doctor is smart. But when you're making work, you have to dump all that stuff. You don't know what art is. Nobody does. And nobody knows its real connection to the artist and what your feelings are. Stuff just happens in art. So I would encourage you more than anything else to empty out when you sit down at the desk. And for that brief period, stop telling yourself the story about yourself that you are so certain about. Advice for a beginner in one sentence: don't let anyone tell you what to think. Any tips on halftones? They should be dark near the Terminator. Trippy work, very cool. I'm very happy to hear that. It was great to listen in. Thank you, Ben. Eva, always happy to see you. Thank you for the kind words. Sorry that you woke up a little too late. Your Proco video was really helpful. I'm super glad. I am very, very glad to hear that. I really tried to distill basically the core of my pencil drawing method into just 20 minutes there. Happy to answer your questions, Lockman. How do you stay with courses? I'd get an assignment I'm not sure how to tackle and just not do the course until I get motivation for it again. It's difficult staying with it consistently. Like I said, get in with a group. You should have some accountability. Just if you could get in with a group of friends who all want to do the same course, and then you pick a day to deliver the deliverables and do like a happy hour where you all crack some beers and then look at all the final work. Just pretend you're in art school and do that. And that'd make it a little easier, I think. Hi, Steven. I've struggled with finding an answer or what I want to do with my art. But once I find what I want to say, I don't feel like I have the skill level to do it. Then you need to work on your skill level. But don't make your skill level everything. Just bring it up to the level that you need to do the piece that you want to make, and do that one step at a time, one step at a time. Just do that one piece, one missing skill at a time, and repeat for 30 years, you know? One question: how do you find art groups when none of your friends draws? Discord seems to be the most lively thing right now. Discord seems to be the most lively thing. What would you say to someone beginning to learn the fundamentals of... I'm getting the signal. It's time to end it. All right, everybody. Let me just answer the one I was in the middle of. Someone beginning to learn the fundamentals of traditional art, like 6th to 12th grade. Draw from life. If you're that young and you've got everything ahead of you and you've got all of this time to change your practice, I would start with drawing from life. I mean, we hear it all the time. It's the most common advice because it's the best advice. Become a mystic. Become absolutely enamored with what the world looks like and draw it constantly. It's the best thing anyone can do. And you don't need any structure to that. You can literally just do that with no guidance. Just begin an intimate relationship with the way the world presents itself to you. And that's enough. That's really enough. All right, everybody. I'm going to have to run. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Again, thanks to all the super chats. And maybe I'll see you all again soon. I'm happy to have this set up where I can stream my progress on my traditional drawings much easier Work allowing and life allowing, I will jump on here more. But I appreciate all of the support. All the support that you guys give me is slowly / rapidly moving me towards a time where I can do this way more, and it's much easier to revolve my schedule around these kinds of experiences and making personal work and sharing with you all, as opposed to client work. So I appreciate that greatly, everybody. I'm very humbled by that. There's really nothing I can say about that. That's pretty incredible and unbelievable. So thank you, everybody. So long, everyone. Have a good night. And if you're drawing tonight, happy drawing. I'm going to go eat some dinner. Goodbye, everyone. Take care.